Welcome to Guest of the Year. I'm the host. My name's Mike. Today we've got 5 deadheads from around the country competing for a prize pack provided by Sunshine Daydream and a spot in next week's show. Aaron of Sunshine Daydream Dyes is a creator of small batch wearable art, including handmade batik and ice-dyed clothing, tapestries, and embroidery, including hand-embroidered patches, pants, and overalls. Aaron learned the art of batik in college and quickly fell in love with the process. Her batiks are drawn, waxed, and painted by hand with a focus on detail and consistency placed into each and every shirt. No two pieces are exactly the same. Erin is a full-time art therapist who in 2015 turned her passion of art making and the dead into a small side business. Look out for her seasonal releases in custom batik, tie-dye, and embroidery work at Sunshine Daydream on Instagram, and there's a underscore between Sunshine Daydream, Sunshine_Daydream, and Sunshine Daydream Dyes on Etsy. And I'll put her link in the show note. As always, the prize pack provider was handpicked by Mason, aka From the Lot. Thanks so much to Aaron and Mason. All right, here's how the game works. We'll play the first part of a Grateful Dead live track, and each contestant will use the messaging system to silently guess which year the performance is from. Contestants, who are all on video chat to prevent any possibility of cheating, can submit their guesses at any time during the clip or in the 10 seconds after it concludes. Whoever is furthest from the correct year is eliminated. The last 2 deadheads standing will have a best of 3 series to determine a winner. We've got a returning champion Murph here with us, and we'll meet the rest of the deadheads in a moment, but first, let's hear the first song. Without further ado, The Grateful Dead. Okay, the guesses are in. Scarlet Begonias at the Paramount Theater on October 2nd, 1977. Lyricist Robert Hunter said the song was originally titled Bristol Girls, referring to the town in England where his then-girlfriend and future wife, Maureen, lived. So 2 people guessed 77, our returning champ Murph and newcomer Austin. Both of them are on in the next round. Let's meet Austin. Austin is 36 and he's from Maplewood, New Jersey. Austin, you nailed it exactly, 1977. What'd you hear?
I mean, kind of just everything in it. Like, I would have to say that the Scarlet Fire from Cornell 77 is like my most listened to Dead song of all time. And kind of the way Phil was playing, Bobby's tone, Jerry's tone, the way Jerry sang, like it all sounded similar, but not identical. So I kind of just went, 77 was my gut and I stuck with it the whole way through.
Well, Austin, welcome. You're on to the next round.
Thanks.
Murph, our returning champ, is back. He is 47. He's from Columbus, Ohio. Murph, off to a good start here. You nailed it exactly, 77. You're on to the next round. What'd you hear?
Well, right away I was kind of debating between 76 and 77. But the first thing you hear with those Scarlets from like 76 and 77 is that cowbell, which is kind of a real signaler for me I don't know if maybe they did it into 78, 79, but I associate that with like the classic May 77 Scarlets, like Austin was talking about. And I totally agree with everything Austin was saying. But yeah, it didn't sound, I'll say ragged, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but in 78 things start to get a little more maybe adventurous sounding, and maybe a little bit ragged, and the guitar tone's a little bit more rough. And this just sounded to me like it was going to be earlier than 77. And as as I listened and the recording went on, the recording quality was in keeping with 77, maybe not quite as pristine as May, but I think as we talked about last week, those 76 recordings are kind of flat, and this recording just sounded too good to be 76. So just went with 77.
You proved last week that you were excellent at playing the game, as we say. Was there a moment's hesitation where, like, would he play a 77 Scarlet?
Yes, there was. That's probably why I first went to 76. Like when it first started, I'm like, oh, this is going to be 76 because Mike's not going to play a 77 Scarlet, but here we are.
Cool. You're on the next round, Murph. Thanks for being here. Jeremy, guess 1978. He's also on in the next round. Jeremy is 24 and he's from Palo Alto. Jeremy, 1 year off, very close, right on it. What'd you hear?
So when I first played, I thought it was like 80 for some reason, because maybe the audio quality. I don't know if I've listened to enough 77, but I could hear Keith, so I knew it wasn't that late. I knew it wasn't 79. What I thought it was 78 because I feel like I associate. The one thing was Keith's tone, like his piano tone is kind of this tinny kind of tone, and I don't know, I feel like I've heard that more in 78, but what was it later in 77? If it was later in 77, I don't know, maybe it was similar to...
It was October 2nd.
Okay, so maybe there's a little bit of overlap with late 77, early 78, but yeah, it was kind of that was my main deciding factor, was I feel like I associated that specific piano tone with 78, but I guess I was a little off there.
Nice, Jeremy. You're on the next round. Jennifer, guess 1984. Jennifer is 54 and from Sausalito, California. She's on in the next round. Jennifer, what'd you hear there?
Well, I'm just so nervous, I think. Just trying to listen to it. I'm not as familiar with the shows in the 70s, I have to admit, because I'm a big Brent fan. So, and obviously just guessed wrong. So there you go.
I love that. I guess we get a pretty much nonstop 70s love on this show, but you're more into the 80s.
I'm a big 80s fan. I started seeing the Dead in 86, up to about 94. I don't think I saw any shows up in 95. I had a very small child. I saw a couple shows when I was an infant with my dad, but I don't remember that. So
if you have the stubs, we'll count it.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Well, we'll
free
still count
shows. Yeah.
Hey, it's great to have a Brent fan here. So welcome, Jennifer. You're on to the next round. Jen is 53 and she's from Chattanooga, Tennessee, who very kindly agreed to go by Jen to differentiate between Jennifer. Jen, you guessed 1989. What'd you hear there?
Well, I was trying for 79 and fat fingered it and didn't realize it until you were way into the thing. But I will definitely cop to it. But I was struggling with hearing the recording quality, wasn't great, I didn't think. And then I was like, it's not like a crisp 77. So, but I felt like it was in that air. So I meant to do 79, but I put an 81. But it's fine.
Well, this happened 2 weeks ago, too, and we have something amazing called the Bad Connection Redemption Bracket, which we've expanded to fat fingering, as you said.
It was totally fat fingering. I don't have I don't have a keypad. I have it up here at the top, and I'm like fat fingering it all the time.
Well, shit, I'm very sorry. I know it's definitely tough to go out that way, but could you tell us, how'd you get into the Dead?
So I kind of have always been a satellite in the orbit of Planet Grateful Dead. Like, always remember hearing about the Grateful Dead when I was young. just because I guess the radio stations that I listened to, I started in earnest listening to some of the music in the early 80s. Picked up Europe 72 in the early 80s and really listened to that a lot. I got a few tapes here and there in the mid to late 80s and would listen to those, but really got together with my ex-husband in the early 90s, and he was big into the Dead, and we started touring in the 90s and did quite a bit of touring, and we would do the whole East Coast usually, and he was a big tape trader, and we did a lot of JGB shows, and we did a lot of straight Dead. But after Jerry died, we were quite lost. We tried hard with the Dead, and we tried hard with Further and the other ones and everything like that. But we were really quite lost. So we did some, exploration with Fish and some things like that. Nothing ever really. It was a great loss. It was great. It was a great loss to our lives, or my life, and my way of living. I have a son who's 16 now, and he's gotten into the Dead, and he we've taken him to Dead and Company, and he can call the show. He can call the songs like before his dad or I can both. He's fantastic. So I'm really excited about having him have that love of the Dead like his dad and I both have had. And so really excited that he can go and be part of that family, because it is like going to family. I don't have a particular year or a particular iteration of the Dead that I prefer. Like, I love it. If I can listen to it, if it's out there available, I love it. If I can see it, I love it. I'll see Bobby until I can't see Bobby anymore. I'll see Phil until I can't see Phil anymore. I'll keep going and keep taking my kid, and he'll keep going.
So you said after 95 you were lost, and now it seems like you are able to take a lot of joy in Bobby doing his version of the Dead songs and sharing it with your son. How did that evolution, that rebirth take place?
I'm gonna say pandemic. I dove back in on like re-listen, Internet Archive, and all that. And my son and I every day would be like, okay, what shows, Dead of the Day? Let's listen to shows. And we'd just start, as soon as he got home from school, we'd start listening, and we'd listen to like 2 or 3 shows a night just of that day in Grateful Dead history. And just doing that deep dive and having that time at home together really sparked that again in me, and it really sparked it hard in him. So I appreciate that time, that was a time to just step back and say, hey, what makes my heart happy? What makes my soul happy? What can I do when all this chaos is going on in the world around us? And what is it that grounds me? Where's my joy? And it's in the music of the Grateful Dead.
Jen, thank you so much for sharing that with us, and thank you for being here.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Of course. Okay. Jennifer, Austin, Murph, and Jeremy are on to the next round. We're trying to whittle it down to 3, then 2, then 1.
Slow motion and I'm lost in the flow. Playing cold music from the barroom floor. Even the thing that you want. There's a dragon with matches that's loose on the town. With a whole pan of water just to cool him down. Fire. Fire, fire on the mountain. Fire, fire on the mountain. Fire, fire on the mountain.
Okay, the guesses are in. Fire on the Mountain at JFK Stadium in Philly on July 7th, 1989. The longest ever Scarlet Fire was 35 minutes. It was performed on 11/1/79 at Nassau Coliseum. So only one person got it exactly, and it was Jennifer. She guessed 1989. She's on to the next round.
I was there.
Oh, that helps. So you heard what you heard that day.
I did, yeah. Those were the days, yeah, for sure. I was at that show with a good friend who has since died, and those were the days.
Sounds like a hell of a memory. So how quickly did you pick that out? You're like, oh, I was at the show with my friend.
I don't know if I knew. I knew the year. You know, the I never know all these terminology, but like the envelope thing, you know, of Jerry's guitar, and just the really like light keyboard sound during that time. Like that was my favorite tour that summer. So
That's really cool you're at that show. So next closest was Murph. Murph guessed 90. What'd you hear, Murph?
At first I was trying to listen for kind of a telltale keyboard, and it really didn't scream Brent to me right away. At first I was thinking, you know, could that possibly be Vince? And so I was, you know, struggling a little bit, but then on the chorus I was able to hear Brent in the background with his awesome late 80s vocals. I think he is a great vocalist throughout his tenure, but it's amazing how much his voice changed. Like those early 79, 80, you can be forgiven for mistaking his voice for Donna because he's so high. And then just as the decade goes on, he gets that gravelly, like gravitas. And so I heard him singing, and then the guitar tone on that solo was just, it was really awesome for one thing. But I'm a huge 89, 90 fan, really love those years. And so that kind of placed it more for me. And also, by the way, can I just say kudos for doing the Scarlet Into the Fire, you know, 77 to 89. That's pretty dope. So
Thanks, Murph.
well played by the host. But yeah, that sounded really good. I liked it.
Awesome. Thanks, Murph. And I appreciate it. Keeping it fresh on this show, you know. This is the 20th episode. So you got to... Well, Jeremy guessed 87. He's on to the next round. Austin guessed 81, and he's eliminated. Sorry, Austin. Jeremy, talk to us. You guessed 87.
So I love the late 80s to 90. I never really listened to much post Brent. But it's always so hard for me to tell from like 86 to 90. It all sounds very similar to me. I guess maybe I haven't listened to enough. The way the drums sounded, I thought that maybe it was kind of an earlier late 80s mix. I could tell it was Brent on the keys. Jerry's voice was obviously late 80s to me, or not, 90. But beyond that, I just, 87, 88, 89 especially, they all sound very similar to me. It's not like the late 70s. I feel like there's a little bit more differentiation that you can pick out, but I just, I struggle with these particular years.
I think most people do. I certainly do. Well, Jeremy, you're only 2 years off after all that. After all that, putting yourself down there, and you're on to the next round. Austin, 81. What'd you hear there?
Yeah, I think I got tripped up by a couple of things. I started listening in on like Bobby's tone, and it sounded not all that far off from the Scarlet that we had just listened to. So I'm like starting out in 79, 80 kind of range, and then Phil being up in the mix, yeah, that still fits. And then by the time Jerry started playing his solo in that overdriven tone, I was like, wait a second, I'm not sure this is right. But I don't know, I didn't really have enough time to go back and kind of figure anything else out. I guess a couple of years later tried to hedge it a little bit, but it was not right.
Well, how'd you get into the Dead?
I kind of stumbled on it on my own, weirdly enough. In high school I got into classic rock, and so I knew Truckin' or Casey Jones off of the radio or whatever. And then maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I was put on a Pandora station, play artists similar to, I think it was probably Government Mule or something like that, right? And listening, and this song comes on, and I had to stop and go, oh man, this is awesome. I got to figure out what it is. And it was Jazz is Dead. It wasn't actually the Dead. It was Jazz is Dead, playing Scarlet Begonias, right? It's this instrumental version. I said, this is great. I got to go find more like this. And so they've got 2 albums out from back in 2008 or something. And so I quickly found them and listened through everything there, and everything was awesome. Loved it all. All right, well, the only logical next step here is I better go actually find the Grateful Dead. And I don't know, just started putting on shows in the background while I worked, and loved it, and kind of quickly got on the bus from there.
That's awesome. So before you checked out a Grateful Dead original, you plowed through all of Jazz is Dead.
I'm pretty sure that's about how it went. Yeah.
Interesting. So are you mostly a jazz guy?
I'm mostly rock, classic rock, but I tend toward the more jazzy aspects of it. Yes was always my favorite band for a long time, and the prog rock stuff, and kind of pulling all these influences. And so anything that's jazz rock fusion is definitely right in my wheelhouse. And so I find, that I'm typically drawn toward the 70s Dead, and especially the early 70s when Keith was relatively new in the band and started pulling them in that kind of jazzy direction. That that's really the music that I gravitate to the most.
So do you go hunting for super jazzy, long playing in the bands?
After all that I said, it's going to sound weird that those really deep spacey jams aren't quite my thing either. I like them, but I'd sometimes they lack a little bit of the structure that I would also like to have, or sometimes they just go out there for way too long. So I'll enjoy a good spacey 10 minutes worth of playing in the band, but if you're playing out that 45-minute version, maybe I'll look for something else.
So what threads the needle for your love of structure but also love of improvisational jazz?
It's a good question. Eyes of the World is a good one, and I always love a good Weather Report suite, and especially in the early 70s when they were playing the whole thing straight through. It kind of scratched that kind of prog rock, kind of jazz, all mixed together into one itch for me.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on and playing, Austin.
This is great. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, Jeremy, Jennifer, and Murph are on to the next round. They are still competing for the Sunshine Daydream prize pack. And to get that, you're going to need to get to the finals. 2 spots, 3 of them. Let's play the song.
Caught on a limb. You know better, but I know like I told you what I said. Steal your face right off your head.
He's Gone at War Memorial Auditorium in Buffalo, New York on November 9th, 1979. After Mickey Hart's father, Lenny Hart, the subject of He's Gone, was released from prison for absconding with $155,000 of the Dead's money, he taught music lessons in Mill Valley, California until his death in 1975. So Murph was closest. He's on to the finals. One step closer to defending his title and the Sunshine Daydream prize pack. Murph, 80, you were 1 year off. What'd you hear?
I was wavering between 79 and 80. It was really reminding me of some of those fall 79 shows, like the ones that are on there's that Road Trips compilation before they started doing whole shows, and then they went away from Road Trips altogether. But, it's a little bit of a disjointed sound because Brent is still pretty new in the band, but based on those really high backing vocals, like I talked about before, it told me really early Brent. The keyboard sound was really early Brent. I would have liked to have heard that whole song. It sounded pretty good, but Jerry's vocals it was a little tough for me to pin down his vocals because he didn't sound real strong from a vocal standpoint, but at the same time, he didn't sound as weary and rough as he did in kind of the mid 80s. So that's what I heard. I was super tempted to play to guess 79, but as you've noted, I'm playing the game, and I figured it couldn't be any earlier than 79, so I kind of hedged a little bit and went with 80.
Thanks, Murph. Nice breakdown. Joining you in the finals will be Jeremy. He guessed 1981. Jennifer guessed 1987. Jeremy, why 81?
So the first thing that stuck out to me was like the really punchy sounding drums, which I kind of associate with the early 80s. They just sound super, like the kick and the snare are super punchy. Jerry's vocals also tripped me up because they definitely were not the gravelly mid to late 80s. I was thinking that they sounded a little like they were kind of wavering, and they're getting to the point where they're getting a little bit past the young-ish Jerry sound. That's kind of why I went with 81. My gut first answer was 80, but I thought because of the sound of his vocals, I thought a little bit later. I thought that I kind of assumed 79 would be a little bit cleaner sounding.
Right on, Jeremy. You're on to the finals. Jennifer, I'm sorry you're eliminated. You guessed 1987. What'd you hear there?
Oh, I knew it was Brent. I should have thought about how high his voice was, and just these guys deserve it. They're great. Really great, all the things that you guys are listening for and picking out. So kudos to you. And it just was wrong. Yeah.
How did you get into the Dead?
Well, when I graduated from high school, a good friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, let's go to these shows." And I knew a little bit about the Dead because my dad, was into that, and but only Pigpen era stuff. So his idea was that they were no good anymore. And yeah, he he still kind of feels that way. And my dad, who's about to be 80, thinks that John Mayer is way better than Jerry Garcia. So.
Wow, we got to have him on.
So not a popular idea for sure. And
he's
not
a
one
Pigpen John Mayer guy.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Cool.
But I guess they used to play like Working Man's Dead when I was napping as a child, so that I could sleep through my dad's band practice. So I, it felt like when I went to the show, it felt like something that I was already familiar with somehow. Like I immediately felt like I was at home. It was like the end of 86. So Oakland Coliseum, I'm not sure. And then I saw him like at the Civic, and then I saw him at the Kaiser, and I just was hooked, and my friends were there, and we were just having the best time. A lot of fun. And I think it really took me a few years to get as much into the music as I was into the scene. The scene was just super fun, and I would just wanted to be there. So, yeah.
So you did like full tours?
I did a couple of full tours, 88, 89. I did go to Europe in 90. Yeah, that's what I did. I delivered pizza to make enough money to go to shows and sell T-shirts, grilled cheese sandwiches, and
But your touring kind of fell off in the 90s then?
I mean, I just had a job, and I couldn't tour as much. But anything that came close to the Bay Area, because that's where I've lived, I saw as many shows as I could. I was pregnant in 94. My daughter was born in January of 95. After Brent died, I lost some interest. When Bruce Hornsby stops playing with them, I really lost interest. 89 is definitely my favorite year, the most fun that I had in my whole life. Really, really a great, fun year. And it was like, traveling around the country with 300 of your favorite friends.
So it seems like you knew how good you had it in the moment. It wasn't like a looking back, like, oh, wow, that was so fun. It was like, even in the moment, you're like, this is the fucking shit.
It was the best. We knew it was the best. I will forever be grateful to my absolute best friend who introduced me to shows. She started going in like 82 or something like that when we were still in high school. But we met in San Diego, and then I moved back to the Bay Area, and we kind of lost track of each other. And she called me up in 86 and said, let's go. And, I was all in. It was, I knew it was the best. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate you sharing all that.
Yeah, super, super fun. So I enjoyed it.
Well, Jeremy and Murph are competing for the Sunshine Daydream prize pack in the finals. Murph's looking to win back-to-back Guest of the Year titles. Jeremy looking to supplant him. Let's play the song. Guesses are in. It was Good Lovin' at Tivolis Konsertsal in Copenhagen, Denmark on April 14th, 1972. The show started with a Bertha and ended 31 songs later with One More Saturday Night. Jeremy nailed it, 1972. Murph guessed 1971. Jeremy goes up 1-0 in the series. How'd you figure that one out, Jeremy?
Well, Pigpen, is definitely before 70, as late as 72. The thing that gave it away immediately or almost immediately was how the drum sounded. I guess not in just the Dead, but like in music in general, I always gravitate towards listening to the drums, even though I'm primarily a guitarist myself. But it just the kind of fills that Bill was playing, and I could I could tell he was unaccompanied. There's no other, Mickey wasn't in the mix. Even like there's a little like thin layer of static on the recording that just reminds me of 72. I guess primarily like or specifically Europe 72. And yeah, that's pretty much how I came to it.
Awesome, Jeremy. We're going to come right back to you and get your origin story in a second. But first, let's hear what Murph thought. Murph guessed 71. What'd you hear there?
Debated between 71 and 72. I think I probably got thrown off a little bit by the recording source. I imagine that was probably not like the, an official release. It may have been some kind of alternate source. The I think it was Bobby's guitar sound immediately made me think 72, but then I got in my head a little bit and was wondering, how often did they play Good Lovin' in 72? And I think it started to peter out. And so I went with, I guess, what I thought was kind of a safer bet, 71. I'm not sure if they played it more in 71 than 72, but that's just kind of the sense I had. So yeah, it was just kind of a 50-50 proposition, and yeah, went with 71.
Very, very reasonable there, Murph. Thank you. Going back to Jeremy. Jeremy, how'd you get into the Dead?
Well, so my dad is a huge Deadhead. That was kind of my first exposure. When I was around 13, I started playing guitar, getting like into music. It was kind of broadening my horizons in terms of the kind of music I would listen to. And then I don't know how I came back to the Dead. And I think it was probably Europe 72. It was like that album kind of kicked it off for me. I was like, wow. And then I just, it's a deep, deep hole that you get sucked into. Being from Palo Alto, like, as well, like, you're aware that this is kind of their stomping grounds. Also, I mentioned this in the email to you. I have the same birthday as Jerry. And so everyone was like, oh, your name is Jeremy, Jerry, it's similar. I play guitar, I feel like I have a lot in common. I don't play as well as him, obviously, but he's definitely my number one stylistic influence. Like, I probably sound too much like him when I play, so that also contributed to me getting into it, I think.
So Jeremy, are you in a band?
I'm not in a band right now, but I've been in multiple bands. Like last year I was playing in like a local Grateful Dead cover band. That was pretty fun. Kind of role playing as Jerry. I joined as a drummer actually, and that was we had a double drummer setup going, and but then the lead guitarist left, and so I took the lead vocals and guitar spot. So just like playing in the park, low pressure gigs, but had a lot of fun doing that. And the other band that I played in the most is, it's like we would never rehearse songs. We would just go out in downtown Palo Alto and play completely improvised stuff. That band is called Equator. And so I've always been as well into just like jamming,
Well, it's very Dave Grohl of you to get off the kit and just pick up guitar and start playing. And do you think you could just like pick up bass like Phil did? Do you think that'd be possible for you?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I play bass too. Like,
oh, there you go.
I started a couple of years after playing guitar, but it's the mechanics of playing a bass is very similar to playing a guitar. I mean, depending on if you're playing with a pick or not. I do both, with and without a pick, but it's with bass, it's more you have to focus. If you're a guitarist, you might try to play more flashy kind of stuff, a lot of notes, but you have to really rein it in and understand the role of a bass in a song, is that it's kind of more of the backbone. It's not the lead instrument, but so like I every once in a while I like to kind of do just like covers of Grateful Dead songs. I just did one of Candyman because I was trying to get the vocal harmonies and everything, but I was really conscious when I was doing the bass for that to try to think of like what kind of stuff Phil would do. And I've just like listened to so much Grateful Dead that I've kind of absorbed that through osmosis, I think. And I kind of, it's kind of intuitive to me now.
Wait, so you played bass on this cover song?
I did the bass, the guitars, the drums, and the vocals.
What the fuck? Is this online somewhere? Can we see this?
It's on my YouTube channel. Yeah.
What's your YouTube channel?
It's that's a really good question. I think it's it's Jer, Jer, and then $.
Oh, nice.
That's kind of my like rap name is Jer Money. It's pronounced Jer Money.
Perfect.
But that I posted the cover there. I'm working on another one right now, Cumberland Blues, because I think that's probably like the most difficult vocal harmony they ever did. I don't even know how they did not always pull it off super well, but it's very impressive when they do, because that song is very difficult and it's proving to be beyond my vocal talent. But I'm doing my best, so I'm going to try to post that soon as well.
Wow. Is playing instruments easy for you?
It really depends on what kind of music I'm playing. Like I've trying to get more into jazz in the last couple of years, and that's like, it's I'm getting there. But the kind of stuff that the Dead did, like their jams and stuff, are way easier to improvise on than a jazz song that has a lot of chord changes and key changes and stuff. Most Dead jams, it's kind of like over 1 or 2 or maybe 3 chords, so it's a little easier. I feel much more comfortable playing their music than most anything else, probably, I would say.
Cool. Well, you're up 1-0 in the series, and Murph needs this one to stay alive and have a shot at the Sunshine Daydream prize pack. Jeremy, you need it to clinch and become the new champ of Guest of the Year. Let's play the song.
There was a California earthquake in the year of '83, and living daylights out of the Owens County sea. Not a building was left standing when the dust had cleared away, and the northern mighty rumbled all the way to San Andreas. Sherman Buck was driving his old into town when a big one came and shook so hard that it knocked him to the ground. Thought it opened up a hole so deep, he thought his time was up, and it swallowed up that poor old mule and just missed Sherman Buck. California earthquake, you just don't know what you've done.
The guesses are in. California Earthquake at the Spectrum in Philadelphia on October 20th, 1989. The song was played 3 days after the California earthquake that rocked the 1989 World Series between the Giants and the A's. Murph had that one figured out pretty quickly. You guessed 1989, Murph. You tie the series because Jeremy guessed 1987. Murph, what'd you hear there?
Well, it's a pretty deep dive, and I commend you for pulling that one out. I love that song. I think they only played it a handful of times. I don't know if they played it before that earthquake. I mean, I think they pulled it out. I think it's a Rodney Crowell cover. I think they pulled it out after the World Series earthquake, and the only versions I know, I think, are from '89. I gave a thought to maybe guessing '90, but I know that song from '89, and it sounded like Brent from that era, so went with '89.
Well, thank you for the DAP there, but actually, I forgot to say that was sent in by Doug from Miami, who's my Twitter or my Reddit friend. So all credit goes to Doug. But nice
cool
pull,
choice,
Murph.
Doug.
Yeah, good pull, Murph. Jeremy, 87. I guess you didn't know that little trivia fact.
No, I did not. I'd never heard that song before. It was really hard for me. I was thinking like it could even maybe be post Brent until his vocals came in. Because like the drums were like kind of off tempo. Everyone was off tempo a little bit at a certain point. But The one thing that just made me think 87 was like I recently listened to a version of Candyman because I did that cover. I was trying to listen to a bunch of different versions to figure out the vocal harmony, and I listened to this one where Jerry's voice sounded so deep. It was like the deepest I've ever heard his voice sound, and his voice sounded pretty deep here as well. Whereas I feel like the little bit of 90s I've heard, it even got a little bit higher, even though it was still very gravelly, and the kind of the old man Jerry sound. So that's why I went with 87.
It's good reasoning. Cool. Well, the series is tied 1-1. Decisive game 3. This is why you play Guest of the Year, everyone. Let's see who gets the Sunshine Daydream prize pack. Let's play the song. All right, the guesses are in. Cosmic Charlie at the Avalon Ballroom on January 25th, 1969. Jerry said of Cosmic Charlie being dropped from the band's repertoire, those were the first songs me and Hunter did together, and we didn't have the craft of songwriting down. Songs like Cosmic Charlie, there's technically too much happening there for me to be able to come up with a comfortable version of it that I can sing and play on stage. Jeremy guessed 1969. He got it exactly. Murph guessed 68. Jeremy's the new champ of Guest of the Year. Congrats, Jeremy. Nice pull there for that Cosmic Charlie. How'd you figure that one out?
First thing that stuck out to me was Jerry's guitar tone. It was a really nice. I really like his the late 60s, 70 to 71-ish maybe. Kind of there's a heavier gain tone, which in later years he played with an overdriven tone on solos, and I never was really a huge fan of that tone. But this one I really liked. The organ kind of threw me off. I wasn't sure if it was Tom Constantin or Pigpen playing that. It was kind of a simple part that I thought that maybe Pigpen could be playing or Tom, so I wasn't sure about that. I forget what year Aoxomoxoa came out. Was that 68 or 69? I think it might have been 68, but I was thinking 69, so I don't know if there was any 68 versions of that song. So that's why I went with 69.
Yeah, Aoxomoxoa was 69. Well, congrats, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Murph, you guessed 68. You have been amazing with your analysis these past 2 episodes. It's been a total pleasure having you on. You're 1 year off. What'd you hear there?
Well, kudos to Jeremy for pulling that, and just his insight in this episode's been awesome. So I look forward to continuing to hear more and more from him. So what I guess I tend to do, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, especially with these songs that they're relative rarities. What I tend to do is I kind of orient myself with the version that maybe I'm most familiar with, or that I know the best. And so I immediately went to Harper College from 1970 and was kind of comparing it to that. And to me, the first thing that stood out was Jerry's voice, and just his vocal delivery. It seems like in the late 60s, he's still kind of was trying to sing like a folk singer, and you hear a little bit of that warble, like when he's delivering like I don't know, he's like trying to sound like a folky. And then by, I think 69, 70, he just sort of sounded like himself. So I definitely heard some of that in his vocal delivery. So I don't know, it's January 69. So, I think he was still doing that folk thing. Tripped me up, I guess.
Well, Murph, thanks so much for coming on and coming back to defend your title. Congratulations. You're going on the record books for the guy who took down Todd. And you had amazing analysis. So really appreciate you being here.
Well, I'm not worthy of taking down Todd. That guy is like a savant. And I will say Joshua from that episode before my week. Gosh, that guy's amazing and super young. So it's fun to see people who are younger who are getting into the dead. And I think that's pretty cool.
Well put, Murph. Totally agree. Okay, subscribe to Guest of the Year on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For all the show links, including our new YouTube channel, go to guestoftheyear.net. And if you want to be contestant on the show, sponsor the show, or make comments and ask questions, email us at guestoftheyearshow@gmail.com. Thank you so much to Erin over at Sunshine Daydream. She's wildly kind and wildly talented, and she's a great Etsy shop. And thank you to Mason for curating the prize pack. Shout out to Dylan for drawing the posters. This is his 20th poster. We appreciate you, Dylan. And thank you so much for listening. For the fun facts, I relied heavily on Dead.net, Dead Disc, and Grateful Dead of the Day and their commenters, so thank you to them. Thanks to the amazing tapers whose recordings made this show possible. Congratulations to our new champ, Jeremy. And to our other contestants, thanks for playing, and remember, it's all one song anyways.
And I bid you good night, good night, good night. And I bid you good night, good night, good night.